What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. It is your host, Trent James, aka Johnny Sins 2.0, aka Mendocino County's Most Wanted, aka the Bald Bandit. Today's video is going to be more reaction based, and I am going to be discussing a current law enforcement officer by the name of Matthew Luckhurst. And the purpose of the video is to discuss his termination from the San Antonio Police Department in the state of Texas, and subsequently how he was able to maintain his status as a law enforcement officer after the things that he's done. A couple of reasons I wanted to talk about this, or a few actually. One, I like these reaction videos. I'm going to keep doing it because it's my channel and I find it fun for myself to do these. It's not just strictly corruption from the county that I'm from, Mendocino County. Two, a lot of you guys and gals, for some reason, like to hear my perspective on some of these things regarding current and prior law enforcement officers and the wacky shenanigans that they keep getting themselves into. And also, thirdly, because the things that I'm going to be discussing in today's video are going to tie directly back to some of these topics that I've been covering recently, most notably my prior video on the hiring process for law enforcement officers and background checks and psych evaluations and how they are not real. They're imaginary. They don't exist because chiefs, sheriffs, the command staff, whoever, people that run background checks and professional standards that give their recommendations, they will hire whoever they want to out of desperation, out of personal relationships, out of the fact that these people to fit a personality profile that they know that they can mold them into whoever they want to be, that will turn into company men or women and just go with the flow, create zero issues. And, that's how that goes a lot of the time. So let's go ahead and get into it really quick. This came out like a month ago or something like that, some of these articles, and the incident itself occurred, a few years ago, but I just got sent this by my friend in San Antonio, Texas. And I thought it was really interesting and I wanted to cover it. Like I said, I also used to live in Texas for a couple of years, just outside of Houston in a town called Katy. And the cops out there are out of control. I'll get into that in a little bit, though. Let's go ahead and dive in. So this is the gentleman of topic for today's video, Matthew Luckhurst. And as you can see right below his photograph, disgraced San Antonio cop Matthew Luckhurst is back on the beat after giving a homeless man a sandwich containing dog poop. And before I even looked into this case, everybody, I just looked at this guy's face and I can tell already he is guilty. He did this shit, literally. I'm telling you, I used to be a professional. I'm not anymore. But I know what a guilty face looks like. This guy is definitely handing out poop sandwiches. You cannot convince me otherwise. And now he serves as a cop in Benavides, about 150 miles from San Antonio, which we will get into. So this is kind of what happened here. A former San Antonio police officer, Matthew Luckhurst, was fired for giving a homeless man a feces sandwich and is now employed with a different department in Texas. In 2016, a report showed Luckhurst bragged to a fellow officer that he had picked up some feces, placed it on a slice of bread, and put it in a styrofoam container next to a homeless man. Luckhurst was a 5-year veteran of San Antonio Police Department and had been assigned to Downtown Bike Patrol, aka Nerd Patrol, for about a year. Sick. And additionally, a fellow cop alleged that the one that I was just discussing a second ago, he alleged Luckhurst picked up the feces off the street and placed it on bread, then in a styrofoam container, and left it for a snoozing hobo. That's not very nice. I'm sure this homeless guy has feelings, and he would not appreciate hobo. Luckhurst maintained his innocence from the outset, maintaining he gave the hobo the sandwich to discard, not consume. The homeless man never ate the sandwich. Revolutionary. I'm glad to hear that. I hope to this day that is still true. Okay, let's get into it. That is a lot to unpack here, everybody. Okay, so check this out. So this guy is on Bike Patrol. Disclaimer, I have a friend that used to work Bike Patrol, Nick Lopez, with the Los Angeles Police Department. Nick, if you're watching, you're still a nerd for working Bike Patrol with your little shorts. I'm just kidding, everybody. Nick said that this is actually a very challenging unit in terms of the training element on that, with all the biking and tactical pedaling and whatever else you have to do on that. But check this out. So you didn't have, I'm just talking shit, but you have a bicycle, right? Not a patrol car like I had. So that means that you're going to not be bringing as many items with you to work. All right. So this homeless guy aka Hobo. Let's call him Carl. I'm going to call him Carl. So something tells me, based on the fact that I used to be a cop and I'm a private investigator slash actor slash whatever the hell I am these days, that Matthew had a personal issue with this homeless guy to go out and do something like that, right? Maybe Carl was generating several calls of, complaints from the community, like he was yelling, he's stealing stuff, he's just running around doing crazy homeless shit. I don't know. But it got to a point where Matthew couldn't handle it anymore and he had some sort of vendetta against Carl, right? So Matthew being on a bicycle, I seriously doubt he rolled around with just two empty slices of bread in a styrofoam container in his little backpack or whatever those guys take with them, the little side pouches and stuff on their little bicycles, and, pedal around town and do the Lord's work and issue citations. And I don't even know what those guys do. So this tells me this was a premeditated dog shit sandwich, right? So Matthew was at home. He was pissed one night. He's like, I'm sick of Carl and I'm having to, generating all these calls for service for me. I'm sick and tired of it. So I'm going to get him to eat some dog shit naturally. What else would you do? You wouldn't like just deal with the issue, from a legal standpoint. You're going to make him eat a shit sandwich. So Matthew gets up in the morning, gets on his cute little shorts and his little uniform there with his little bike helmet. And before he leaves, he puts two pieces of Wonder Bread that he purchased the night before from a full loaf. So gets the Wonder Bread, takes out two pieces of bread, sticks it in a Ziploc bag. He grabs a styrofoam container, puts it in his little bag there, pedals to work furiously, gets to work. And then he's around his beat, right, where Carl's at. And Matthew's like, got to find some shit somewhere. Boom, dog shit, right? Here it's easy, in Hollywood. Like I can just walk outside and there's human shit mixed in with dog shit all over the sidewalks. So he might have had to look for like an hour or two down there. I don't know what the status of that is. San Antonio is not that clean. I visited there a bunch of times. Anyway, finds the dog shit, right? Then he unzips his little Ziploc baggie, gets the Wonder Bread, goes and scoops it up, puts it in there for a full dog shit sandwich, puts it in the styrofoam container, goes and takes it to the homeless guy, Carl, who is alleged to have been asleep during this time, for him to discard. So you're telling me, Matthew, that you were like, you did all that work just to hand it to Carl for him to throw away. So when Carl wakes up, he's like, oh, shit sandwich. And Matthew, you're going to be like, yeah, Carl, I just gave you that so you can throw it away. No, what kind of defense is that? You could have came up with something else that would have made a little bit more sense. I mean, you should have been fired, and you have a whole host of mental issues. Clearly, you did not pass your psych evaluation, or passed, right? Because I had discussed in the last video, that's not necessarily a real thing. You gave it to him so he would wake up, think that someone gave him some food, and eat the dog shit sandwich. Maybe because Carl's a drunk, he's a drug user, he's not going to be fully cognizant and aware of what's going on around him to pick up, to where he could pick up a sandwich and be like, smells like dog shit. Fuck it. And he's going to eat it anyway, because you knew that was probably going to be the case. So Matthew gets caught up in that, right? The other thing that's wild with Matthew and his history at the San Antonio Police Department is the exact same year. Check this out. In that same year of the dog shit sandwich and Carl, Luckhurst was accused of defecating in one of the San Antonio Police Department's female restrooms before wiping a brown feces-like substance on one of the toilet seats. He reportedly never denied this. He successfully appealed the dog shit sandwich firing in 2019 because he was fired for that, and briefly returned to the force before dismissal was upheld by a judge in 2020. Wow. So clearly Matthew has a whole host of issues here. He is very obsessed with shit, whether it be animal or human, right? And again, this goes back to my prior video about the psychological evaluation and that not necessarily being a real thing, where the psychologist with my friend that was a hiring lieutenant called him and said, hey, this guy's on the fence that I just conducted an assessment on for your agency, a new hire. Do you want me to hire him or not? This is usually how this goes. You tell me what you want me to do, Lieutenant, even though I'm the psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. Insane. So Matthew gets terminated in 2020. And in the article, it states that he goes on to obtain law enforcement employment at a different agency in Floresville, Texas, right after this in 2022, about 2 years later. I think he became a reserve officer. Either way, he was still a peace officer, still had peace officer powers, a gun and a badge. And the chief at the time, Herrera, was this guy that hired him. Now, when the community where in San Antonio, where Matthew used to work, found out that he got another cop job somewhere else, they lit that place up, the city council and the mayor and all that sort of a thing. And this is what she had to say. So Floresville Mayor Sissy Gonzalez Dip something said the city had been flooded with emails about Luckhurst's position on the force in 2022. In a statement, the mayor said Matthew Luckhurst was released from employment, so he was fired from Floresville Police Department yesterday. He was still probably a probationary employee. Obviously, I think in a lot of agencies in Texas, they're at will. They don't have rights or a union like I did at mine in Northern California. Our city manager, Andy Jocelyn, is implementing stricter hiring policies for all of city of Floresville employees. He is also working with Chief Herrera on the reserve program. So that tells me that, Matthew was a reserve officer, not a full, not like a regular patrol officer, but still affiliated with the agency, meaning he was part-time. And Chief Herrera. So I went to, this is hilarious though, by the way, right? Stricter hiring policies. Like, yeah, maybe don't hire dudes that have handed out shit sandwiches and did all that weird stuff in the female bathroom. It's not that strict, man. Just, that's pretty basic. That's not even strict. That's just like normal. Like strict is like you can never have smoked marijuana once in your life, even if it was 20 years ago, and we will not hire you for that, right? Or something. Like this is just normal. This should just be normal hiring policies. Anyway, I went to look up Floresville Police Department and noticed that Chief Herrera was not around anymore. Their new chief, Anthony Flores, right? And so I looked into this a little bit. I went down some rabbit holes with this, y'all. Our former chief of the Floresville Police Department, Lorenzo Herrera, who was the one that hired Matthew and knew that he was handing out shit sandwiches to Carl. And he has been terminated because, as a part of this whole thing with Matthew, right? This is like a big deal in this town. And city council, they were not all in agreement on this, but they decided to hire an outside entity, which was a private investigator, to conduct an investigation on the chief and the agency for a lot of allegations against the chief himself. And he was ended up, terminated as a part of hiring Matthew, but a lot of other things like policy violations, intoxication incidents, nothing insane that I was able to locate in terms of like major crimes that this guy was committing, but basically he was just unfit to be a police chief, which is not uncommon. Most police chiefs in in America, or sheriffs, should not be in those positions. Very few, in my opinion. Most of them are corrupt. Just because somebody's been a cop for 30 years, that somehow makes them suitable for the job? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And what was interesting in this is the fact that a couple of the city council members were like, well, let's just leave it to the city manager to conduct an investigation into the police chief. No, you never want to do that. They did the right thing by subbing this out to another entity, because the city again, I've worked for two agencies. All right. I was a deputy with the sheriff's office for most of it. Then I was a patrol sergeant for a police department. Okay. And the city manager where I worked, his name was Brian, in the city of Willits in Northern California. Okay. Guy sucked. So he would come into the chief's office, Fabian Lizarragua, who's been fired now, and be like, hey, Fabian, you guys aren't writing tickets. I need your guys to write tickets because our city doesn't generate enough revenue. I need you guys to tow cars because we get a portion of those monies. The chief would go run to my lieutenant, who's also been fired, Derek Hendry, and Derek Hendry would come tell me, the patrol sergeant, you need to write tickets. Trent, go tell your guys to write tickets. Otherwise, you need to start writing them up. And I'd be like, nah, man, that's super nerdy, man. We're not, because we had a quota. We had quotas. But my point is, the city manager is so close, especially obviously in a professional capacity with the chief of police, but a lot of times there's like personal relationships there, especially if they've been around for a long time. It's a smaller town, whatever. So you don't want the city manager to go and investigate the police chief, because a lot of times you're going to find a lot of overlapping crimes or policy violations or whatever. That's also the same. It's like the same thing as investigating your own. Yeah, we investigated ourselves and found out that there was no wrongdoing. Source, trust us, bro. Right? No. So they did the right thing here. And he was ultimately terminated, which is awesome. But the other thing here is that he went on to get a cop job at a different place in Benavides, Texas. Okay, so I had to go down that rabbit hole now. What's going on here? And this is in 2023 that this happened. He's still, as far as I can see, employed there. I had to look into this town. I'm thinking like, okay, a guy with my experience, just knowing the things that I know and how these things go. The guy's been terminated from two agencies for the first one's like some crazy psychological shit, right? How did he get picked up at this third department? Well, it's going to tell me without looking into it. It's a POS agency. It's a small town, probably high crime rate, not a lot going on, bad pay. Nobody wants to be a cop there. Nobody really wants to be a cop anywhere anymore. You know what I mean? But especially there. That's usually how this goes. So I looked into it. Okay. And this is what I found. Benavides, about 150 miles south of San Antonio, kind of near the border. Yeah, low population, about 1,100. This is obviously a couple years old, but it can't have gotten that much more than that, about 1,500, right? So then I looked at the police department itself online on their city website. This is it. This is all they had. Chief of Police Andrew Hines, and there's our boy, Matthew Luckhurst, the king of poop sandwiches. So I don't know. I think that those are the only two affiliated with the agency. They have nobody else on there, but it's obviously you saw the population is very small, right? I myself, when I was a resident deputy, I policed a town alone for a long time with a population approximately that size. So it's possible they just have those two. But you see low population near the border. Probably nobody wants to go work down there. And so Chief Hines was happy to get somebody that was willing to work there. And so he's going to overlook all this stuff in the background check and the psych and everything else, the fact that he's been terminated. And I'm going to show you what Chief Hines had to say about this when a couple of these news outlets reached out to him for a statement regarding his hiring of this poop lunatic. Check this out. Chief Andrew Hines sent KSAT, the news outlet, the following statement late Tuesday night. So the Benavides Police Department hiring of Officer Matthew Luckhurst highlights the department's commitment to offering individuals a second chance to demonstrate their dedication to police service. Despite past allegations, Officer Luckhurst's record since joining them has been exemplary with no complaints. A thorough background check was conducted before everybody, like my last video, before he was sworn in as a peace officer, ensuring that all aspects of his history were carefully considered. Officer Luckhurst has consistently maintained that the allegations made against him during his time with the San Antonio Police Department, specifically the poop sandwich incident with Carl, were untrue. An arbitrator ruled in favor of reinstating his employment. Yeah, but an actual judge, upheld the termination, Chief Hines. So Chief Hines just contradicted himself, right? He said clearly he deserves a second chance, but then went on to say that, make an excuse for this guy, saying that he said the allegations weren't true. And he did a background check, right? So, yeah, of course he's going to say that they're not true. Matthew's not going to be like, yeah, man, Chief Hines, yeah, I did. I packed up the Wonder Bread. I took the styrofoam container to work that day on my cute little tricycle, and I found that dog shit on West 57th and Main Avenue. And I handed it to Carl because I wanted him to eat that shit, literally, because he was just making me mad. And then the incident in the female's bathroom, like, of course he's not going to say that, right? But him making excuses for this guy, that just was that tells me everything I need to know about Chief Hines. He's also corrupt. His background's probably atrocious too, just like that prior chief Herrera, who was probably justifiably terminated from the Flores Police Department. And, he couldn't get anybody else to work down there. So he has to take poop sandwich guy, and can't get anybody else. So he's just going to stick up for him. There's been no other incidents. Yeah, not yet, man. Just wait till that guy gets a hold of like a few loaves of bread at the store, and he goes and finds some people that are pissing him off in the community. Like, you're going to have an epidemic of poop sandwiches on your hand. You're not going to know what to do with yourself. So, yeah, it's not like crime of the century when it comes to some of these things. Like, the other videos I was doing on a couple of the guys that I worked with that lost their job recently, or were arrested for domestic violence, or inappropriately touching a woman while she was asleep. But it's like one of the weirder things that I've read that a cop is doing. And this guy still maintains his position. That's absolutely insane. But you see the background check element, how he knows these things in his background check and what he's done. And he just said, damn, what do I do? Nobody wants to work it down here. I'm going to roll the dice on this guy. He didn't like beat up anybody unjustifiably, or, shoot somebody unjustifiably, violating their Fourth Amendment, or use of force stuff or whatever. And, but he did do this poop sandwich thing. Let's just see how this plays out, I guess. That's kind of what the chief is thinking, I guess. But anyway, that's going to be it for today's video, everybody. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care.